Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're plunging into a question that, well, it stirs passionate debates among Formula One fans and seasoned analysts alike. You know the one. Just how much of a driver's performance, their triumphs, their setbacks, is truly down to their skill, and how much is simply the cruel hand of bad luck or external circumstances, things they just can't control.
Yeah, it's that age-old debate, isn't it? Skill versus fortune.
Exactly. And we've got a really fascinating analysis here from the DRS Zone online community. They've meticulously dissected the 2025 F1 season, going incident by incident, it seems. And they've uncovered something genuinely intriguing about two Spanish drivers, Fernando Alonso and Carlos Sainz.
What's really fascinating here, I think, is that this isn't just about, lamenting what-ifs or some kind of fantasy league. This deep dive, it's an interpretive exercise, sure. It acknowledges it's subjective, naturally, but it rigorously aims to quantify something we often discuss but rarely measure with this kind of precision, which is the points these drivers might have gained if circumstances totally outside their control hadn't intervened.
So they're kind of creating an alternate history of the season, based on what could have plausibly happened.
It's a good way to put it. Plausible outcomes, exactly.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Our mission here is to go through these specific instances, try to understand the methodology they used, and really grasp how much this F1 fiction, as you called it, might actually shift our perception of the championship standings. We're looking for those aha moments,
Yeah.
the ones that reveal the hidden side of a racing season, and crucially, how they got to these revised point totals.
Right, the how is key.
So let's start our deep dive with Fernando Alonso, a driver whose career often feels like, well, a masterclass in resilience. And let's be honest, sometimes a magnet for the unpredictable.
That's fair to say.
Now, this analysis made a very clear distinction, didn't it?
Yes, absolutely critical. It only looked at mechanical failures, strategic errors made by the team, or incidents where the driver was clearly, unequivocally not at fault.
Okay, so that's key. For example, Alonso's crash in Australia. Even with all the talk about track conditions, this analysis said, nope, that's ultimately a driver error, so it's not counted here.
Precisely. They're really trying to isolate only those external factors, stripping away everything within the driver's direct control, essentially, to get a clearer picture of, let's say, pure performance potential that day.
Got it. So for Fernando, what was the first big instance of this bad luck they identified?
Right. The first significant one recorded was in the Chinese Grand Prix. He was running in a respectable P12, that's position 12,
Yeah.
when, quite dramatically, his brakes actually caught fire. That led to a retirement, a DNF.
Wow, brakes on fire.
Yeah, the analysis projected that had he finished, and especially considering a couple of post-race disqualifications of other drivers that happened, he likely would have secured P9.
P9.
Which would mean 2 lost points that day. You could just imagine the frustration, right? A solid race, undone by a component failure.
Absolutely. That's a stark beginning. And it sounds like the team played a part in some scenarios, too. You mentioned strategy errors. What about the Miami sprint? I remember hearing a lot about chaotic strategies there.
Ah, yes, Miami. That raises that important question about the dynamic, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Between driver instinct and team strategy on the pit wall. In Miami, Fernando specifically asked to pit, come in for tires, but the team, Aston Martin, didn't bring him in promptly.
He felt it was the right time.
Seems so. And other drivers, like Lewis Hamilton and Yuki Tsunoda, they made similar stops around then and gained significant ground. Fernando was running P8 at the time. After that strategic hesitation, he then got caught up in a collision with Liam Lawson. Importantly, the stewards deemed that Lawson's fault.
Right, so not on Fernando.
Not on Fernando. So the analysis, it looked closely at the lap times of those around him, the tire wear, what those other drivers achieved on that strategy, and suggested that if the team had followed Alonso's call, he could have realistically finished P5.
P5 instead of, what did he finish? Or did he retire?
He didn't finish because of the collision damage, compounding the issue. So P5 represents a potential 4 lost points. It was a kind of perfect storm, strategic error, then an incident not of his making.
Okay, 4 points there. Now, you mentioned Emilia-Romagna earlier.
Yeah.
Sounds like another one with strategic headaches. This is becoming a theme for Aston Martin in this analysis.
It does seem that way in these specific instances, yes. Emilia-Romagna. Fernando qualified an impressive P5. Great starting spot. And he was holding that position comfortably before his first pit stop. Then later in the race, a virtual safety car, a VSC, came out.
Ah, the VSC. Always a critical moment.
Absolutely. It neutralizes the race. Everyone slows down, making pit stops much less costly in terms of track time. A huge opportunity.
Right.
Fernando wanted to pit. He sensed the opportunity, but the team didn't react. They kept him out on track.
While others pitted.
Exactly. Alex Albon, for instance, was behind Fernando, but did pit under the VSC, following a more optimal strategy. Albon ended up finishing P5.
So Albon jumped him, thanks to the VSC stop?
Correct. The DRS zone analysis, comparing their relative pace to tire situations and Albon's successful execution, estimates Fernando could have finished anywhere from P5 himself down to maybe P7.
Okay, so a range there.
A range, yes, meaning a loss of between 6 to 10 points. It really highlights how razor-thin those margins are in F1, doesn't it? A split-second call from the pit wall. Huge points implications.
6 to 10 points is significant, so that's strategy.
What about just pure mechanical failure, the stuff that just breaks?
Monaco. That's the clear, brutal example. Fernando was running comfortably in P6.
Which is fantastic for Aston Martin in Monaco.
Phenomenal result, potentially.
Yeah.
Overtaking is nearly impossible there, so track position is everything. He was holding it. Then, without warning, mechanical engine failure, forced retirement, DNF. Just like that. A straightforward 8 points lost, a perfectly executed weekend just undone by a component giving up. Imagine the mental toll.
Definitely. Any others like that?
Italy, Monza. He was running P7, pushing hard, then a suspension failure. Another retirement.
Suspension this time. Yep. Cost him another clear 6 points. These are just those clear-cut cases where sheer, unavoidable bad luck completely wiped out strong drives.
Right. Okay, and then there was Great Britain. That race was chaos. How does the analysis even begin to untangle that kind of pandemonium?
Yeah. Silverstone was definitely wild. And the analysis flags it as being marked by significant strategic missteps by the team, which seemed to disproportionately affect Fernando. He ultimately finished P9, which, points are points.
Yeah.
But when the analysis compared his race to others, like his teammate Stroll, and especially Nico Hülkenberg.
Hülkenberg had that amazing race, right? Came from the back.
Exactly. Hülkenberg went from last to an incredible P3. Both he and Stroll seemed to nail the strategy. So the projection suggests Alonso, with a similar optimal strategy, could potentially have been as high as P3 himself. Or, more conservatively, at least P7.
Wow, P3 is optimistic.
It is, hence the range. It represents a loss of between 2 points if he got P7 instead of P9, up to 10 points if P3 was achievable. It's a broad range because of just how many variables were flying around in that race.
Understood. Chaos makes prediction hard.
Very. And even in the Netherlands, there was apparently a controversial team order plus a strategy call that saw Stroll finish ahead. The analysis suggests this directly cost Fernando 2 points, dropping him from a potential P7 to his actual P8 finish.
So it just keeps adding up. Feels like his talent is often battling more than just the other cars on track.
That's certainly the picture this analysis paints for these specific races.
So, okay, let's tally up. When we add all these invisible points back, what does it actually mean for Fernando's championship standing? Where is he now and where could he be?
Right. The bottom line, Fernando Alonso is currently sitting P10 in the standings with 30 points.
Okay, P10 with 30.
Now, if we apply the most conservative estimates from this analysis, always taking the lower number in those ranges, he would jump up to P9 with a much healthier 56 points.
56 points. That's a decent jump.
It is. But the more optimistic view, factoring in the higher end of those potential outcomes, places him even higher at P8 with 68 points.
P8 with 68. That really changes the perspective on his season.
Absolutely. And this kind of shift would also dramatically elevate Aston Martin. They'd likely move up to P5 in the Constructors' Championship, ahead of Williams.
Wow. That's huge for the team, too.
It really highlights the hidden impact, doesn't it? Factors beyond the driver's control, painting potentially a very different picture of his season's performance.
Okay, fascinating stuff for Alonso. Now, let's turn our attention to Carlos Sainz. His season has also felt like a bit of a roller coaster, lots of ups and downs. How much of that was truly in his control, according to this analysis? How much was just, the racing gods not smiling on him?
Carlos's story, when you look at it through this lens, is equally compelling. And, at times, maybe a bit heartbreaking, too. Again, the analysis is really strict about excluding driver errors. So his accident in Australia, even with the context some gave about unexpected torque changes, that's out. Not counted.
Same methodology. Got it.
Exactly. So his first recorded instance of significant loss points, according to this, was right at the start of the season. Bahrain, he was fighting hard right in the mix for P6 or P7. good position. Then Yuki Tsunoda, unfortunately, lost control and collided with him. End of race for Sainz. DNF.
Oh, right at the first race. That's tough.
Really tough start. Tsunoda actually went on to finish P9 in that race. So the projection, based on Carlos's pace and where he was running, is that he likely would have finished P8, meaning 4 lost points right out of the gate. A promising race, just completely derailed by someone else's mistake.
Ouch. Okay, Bahrain, then Miami. Yeah, that race seemed tricky for everyone. Was it a big one for him, too, in terms of these external factors?
Yes. Miami pops up again? Absolutely. In the main race, Carlos had a really tough situation. He had to manage a set of used medium compound tires for a very long time.
Used mediums, that's usually not ideal for a long stint.
Not at all. Led to significant overheating issues, which just killed his pace, slowed him right down. And then there was also a situation where Alex Albon, in a rival car, apparently ignored a team order from his own team, which further complicated things for Carlos as they were battling.
So, tire trouble and inter-team dynamics affecting him.
Seems so. Carlos ultimately finished P9. Albon, meanwhile, finished P5.
Okay.
So this detailed analysis, looking at Carlos's pace before the tire problems really bit, and considering the potential impact of that Albon situation, it suggests Carlos could realistically have finished somewhere between P5 and P7.
P5 to P7 instead of P9.
Right. Losing between 4 and 8 points there. It was a kind of multi-layered misfortune, really, not just one thing.
Right, okay. And don't tell me, Emilia Romagna again. Another VSC strategic issue?
You guessed it. Exactly. It's a fascinating pattern across both drivers at that particular race, isn't it?
It really is. So, similar story to Alonso.
Very similar. Carlos found himself on the wrong side of that VSC strategy call. He finished P8 in the end. But Alex Albon, who was behind him before the VSC, took advantage of that cheap pit stop window.
And jumped him.
Finishing P5. The analysis indicates Carlos, with the optimal strategy, could have been fighting for P4 or P5.
P4 or P5, that's significant.
Yeah, representing a loss of between 6 and 8 points for him in that one race alone. It just underscores again how critical those split-second strategic calls are, especially under a VSC. Missing that window can be incredibly costly.
It really sounds like a recurring theme for both of them. Missed opportunities, things slipping through their fingers for reasons they couldn't influence.
It really is, and that's what makes this kind of analysis so insightful, I think. It digs beneath the surface result. Look at Canada. A relatively minor thing, perhaps, but still impactful. A team error in choosing the cooling configuration for his car. Yeah, led to severe overheating issues during the race. Might seem small, but the analysis projects it directly cost him 1 point. Just chipped away.
Every point counts.
Every single one. Then, Great Britain again, chaos strikes. Charles Leclerc apparently forced Carlos off the track while Carlos was lining up a pass for P8.
An aggressive move from Leclerc.
That's how the analysis interprets it. Albon, who was running behind them, sort of collected the pieces from that incident and ultimately finished P8 himself.
So Carlos lost the position due to Leclerc, and Albon benefited.
Correct. This directly cost Carlos 4 points, according to the analysis, a direct result of another driver's actions.
Man, it's relentless sometimes. What about later in the season? Any other big hits?
Certainly. The Netherlands pops up again. Another collision, this time with Liam Lawson again, led to a DNF for Carlos.
Lawson again. He featured in Alonso's list, too.
He did. Seems he was in the wars a bit. Carlos was running P8 at the time of this incident. Albon, who was behind him when it happened, eventually went on to finish P5 in that race.
Okay, so potential points lost again.
Significant potential points. This incident, depending on how well Carlos might have finished, cost him between 4 and 10 points. Again, a range based on optimistic but plausible projections.
4 to 10. That's another big swing.
And finally, Italy. Monza, again. A poor strategy choice by the team, putting him on used medium tires when the hard compound proved much better.
Mediums versus hards, classic strategy debate.
Classic. And compounded by a collision with the rookie, Oliver Bierman. All this meant Carlos finished P11 outside the points.
And the team admitted the strategy was wrong.
Williams themselves, interestingly, later admitted that the hard tire was, in hindsight, the better strategy call that day.
Okay, so that adds weight to it.
It does. Based on his performance potential and that admission, the analysis suggests Carlos could realistically have finished between P7 and P9, losing 2 to 6 points there.
Right. So, okay, let's do the math again for Carlos. Aggregating all these hidden costs, what does this mean for his season? Where is he now, and where might he be?
Okay, the final tally for Carlos. He's currently way down in P18 in the standings with just 16 points.
P18, wow, that sounds like a disastrous season on paper.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But with the conservative estimate of these lost points added back, just the lower end of the ranges, he would jump significantly all the way up to P9 with 41 points.
P9 from P18, that's huge.
Massive jump. And the optimistic estimate, it also places him at P9, interestingly, but with an even more substantial 57 points.
57 points. That completely reframes how you'd evaluate his performance, doesn't it?
Completely. It raises a really important question about perception versus underlying performance. It suggests he's been far, far more competitive than those raw numbers indicate.
Absolutely. And the analysis also pick up on something interesting with Alex Albon you mentioned. It seemed like he often benefited when Sainz had these issues.
Yes, that was a fascinating sort of side note or byproduct of this whole exercise. A strong pattern emerged where Albon frequently seemed to be the one picking up points precisely when Sainz suffered these external misfortunes.
The guy in the right place at the right time.
Perhaps, or maybe just driving very well to capitalize. But when the analysis corrects the head-to-head race comparison between Carlos and Alex for these external factors, Carlos Sainz actually comes out ahead of Alex Albon, 8-4, over the 12 races they looked at.
8-4 in favor of Sainz.
That's what this corrected view suggests. Now, this isn't about diminishing Albon's performance at all. He's clearly had a strong season. But it just shows how crucial those external elements are in shaping the narrative of a season and how we perceive drivers relative to their direct competitors.
Yeah, that head-to-head stat is quite telling. So, stepping back a bit, this deep dive, it's more than just F1 speculation or fan theories, isn't it? It feels like there are broader lessons here about how teams, or maybe any organization, can learn from these lost opportunities.
Oh, absolutely. If you connect this to the bigger picture, this kind of what-if or fiction analysis, it isn't just something fans do with spreadsheets. F1 teams themselves conduct very similar, probably even more detailed internal analyses all the time.
You think so?
Definitely. They don't just look at the final points tally. They dive deep into why results happened. They meticulously identify what was within the driver's control versus what was down to team strategy, unexpected mechanical failures, pure bad luck, actions of other drivers, you name it.
To learn from mistakes, presumably.
Exactly. That knowledge is only really valuable when it's understood, applied to future decisions, and used to try and avoid repeating costly mistakes. Think of it as a critical feedback loop for continuous improvement.
It's almost like a really detailed performance review, but one that meticulously accounts for all the external variables, giving a truer measure of individual contribution, maybe?
That's a great way to put it, a truer measure. And this analysis from DRS Zone, it also pointed out that similar corrected comparisons are being done elsewhere. They mentioned accounts like Delta Data on Twitter doing similar work. And these other analyses showed how different driver pairings might look if you corrected for bad luck across the board. For example, suggesting Piastri might actually edge Norris 8-7 in their head-to-head, or Leclerc potentially dominating Hamilton 12-3 in their corrected comparison.
Wow. So it's not just Alonso and Sainz being affected.
Not at all. It powerfully underlines that these factors universally affect performance right across the grid. They often distort our perception of who's truly performing best relative to their machinery and circumstances.
And when you add it all up, just for these two drivers, Carlos and Fernando, the total potential lost points, it's pretty staggering, isn't it?
It really is. For both of them combined, the cumulative loss points, using the more optimistic ends of the ranges in this analysis, could be as high as 80 points.
80 points between just two drivers.
80 points. That would just drastically alter the entire championship landscape. It turns what might look like a bad season or a struggling season on paper into something much more competitive, maybe even impressive given the machinery. It raises that fundamental question for all of us watching, doesn't it?
Wow.
Are we always seeing the true measure of a competitor's ability, or are we often just looking at the tip of the iceberg?
With a huge amount of hidden performance or lost potential lying underneath.
Precisely.
Wow. What an eye-opening deep dive that was. It's a stark reminder, isn't it, that behind every result, especially in a sport as complex and high stakes as Formula One, there's just a myriad of factors at play, things we often overlook or simply can't see from the outside looking in.
Yeah, and this discussion, even though it's rooted in this F1 fiction, as we've been calling it, It really encourages critical thinking, I think. It pushes us to look beyond just the surface level data, the final result sheet, and question what truly contributes to success or what contributes to perceived failure. It's a powerful lesson, really, in understanding performance in any high-stakes environment, whether that's on a racetrack or, in a boardroom or anywhere else.
Absolutely. So what does this all mean for you listening in? As you reflect on this, maybe consider how many other champions or rising stars, whether it's in sports or business or even in your own life, how many people might we be underestimating? Simply because of factors that are entirely outside their control. Perhaps it's time to rethink some of those quick judgments we make based solely on the final outcome.
It's definitely food for thought.
Think about that for a bit.
Yeah.
And maybe, just maybe, do your own deep dive into the hidden performance you see around you.